Welcome to the Vintage Smoke Benji channel. My name is Benji, and today we have an extremely hyped chapter of One Piece. I feel like I always say that. Anyways, but seriously, there's so much within this chapter to go ahead and discuss and theorize. Hypeness from every which way, my guys. But before I begin, of course, go ahead and like, comment, subscribe to the Vintage Smoke Benji channel. I make weekly One Piece chapter reviews as well as other One Piece discussion videos. And very soon, just give me a little bit more time, other anime and manga discussion videos. And I would absolutely love it if you join me on this YouTube journey. And also subscribe to the Geek Giant podcast channel as well as join the Geek Giant Discord. If you like this channel, I promise you you're going to like that channel as well. So go ahead and subscribe today. But we aren't wasting any more time. Let's go ahead and go into the chapter review of chapter 1073 of One Piece, Mrs. Buckingham, Stussy. So we start with another cover page detailing the past of the Mads program. And we have Vegapunk, who seems to be smiling. And he is actually joined by the other Mads members, including Caesar, Judge, and Queen. And from the looks of it, they look pretty upset with Vegapunk for some reason, and I think it has something to do with what's happening in the background. And we see two big military-grade trucks firing what seems to be flowers at each other. Now, I don't know if Vegapunk sabotaged the other Mads members' project, but I will say this, I'm very much appreciating a lot of these flashbacks that we're getting from the original Mads members. And it kind of makes me very excited to see what's going to happen if we were to get a Mads reunion, probably coming very soon. So I'm very excited to see that. But moving on to the actual chapter, we leave off with what happened last chapter, and it seems like Stussy has betrayed both Lucci and Kaku, the other CP0 members. Kaku is currently unconscious, and Lucci looks pretty angry and upset. He immediately attempts to strike at Stussy for her betrayal, but Stussy is a little too smooth. And she uses a new technique called Paper Art's Heartbreak Afterimage, which is basically like a shadow clone in the Naruto series. Yeah. But Stussy has something else up her sleeve. She takes out some lipstick, but Lucci soon notices that this lipstick isn't just any old kind of lipstick, and it's actually embedded with sea stone prism. She then happens to bite Lucci on his neck the same way that she did to Kaku. And I'll tell you this right now, Stussy's been looking pretty bad these last couple chapters. I'm gonna need her to bite me like this, you feel me? You feel me? Now, one thing that I do want to add is, from the looks of it, it doesn't seem like Stussy actually has a devil fruit. It seems like this is more so akin to her lineage factor, or basically her race. So she very much could be a succubus, which a lot of people have been speculating, and it would make a lot of sense. Or she could be a vampire, which I thought originally when we actually got to see her wings. But anyways, Lucci, who is upset and is soon to be falling unconscious, actually calls Stussy a bitch. And with this development, the other Straw Hats, including Zoro and Brook, are also confused at the fact that Stussy has seemingly changed sides. But it is later confirmed, and I don't want to go ahead and toot my own horn, but I did say that Stussy was the ally that Vegapunk had called upon in the previous chapters. Now, the news of Stussy actually defeating Kaku and Lucci actually shocks the other Straw Hat members. Yet with one problem solved seemingly, there's another problem that seems to arise. The Seraphim. And Stussy lets it be known that she holds the same level of authority as Lucci, meaning that she can't override his previous command. So Zoro and Brook spring into action to stop the Seraphim. And Zoro actually mentioned that one Seraphim in particular looks pretty familiar. And I guess you know who it is already. Next we see, oh my god, Lilith is so bad. Are we seeing the same thing? Is that a BBL? Anyways, Lilith attempts to escape from the lab because the Seraphim are blowing holes through all of the laboratory, because basically they're trying to destroy it. So this is a prime time in order to get away and regroup with the rest of the crew. Yet she soon realizes that she has become a target of none other than S-Hawk, or Seraphim Mihawk. But out of nowhere, Zoro proceeds to engage with the Seraphim, and they clash. Now, obviously, I'm pretty sure a lot of you already knew that Zoro was particularly talking about this Seraphim when he said that one of them looked pretty familiar. And Zoro says this: "On closer inspection, you're not the same. You actually have a spark of humanity still." Now, this line is actually pretty cool, and it kind of gives us more of a glimpse on Zoro's and Mihawk's relationship. I guess maybe in a way that Zoro doesn't really see Mihawk as a human in some kind of aspects, but I do find this very interesting. But unfortunately, during their clash, it does seem like the Seraphim actually is able to push Zoro back. Now, I'm not going to go ahead and gas this because this isn't really anything special or anything, but I will say that I think Zoro at first probably underestimated the strength of the Seraphim and was kind of knocked back, or basically knocked off his balance or whatever. But I'm not going to go ahead and slander Zoro for this, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. But Vegapunk Lilith was actually saved by Zoro's actions. And next we see Vegapunk Edison, who is trying to recommand the Seraphim. Edison yells for the Seraphim to go ahead and stop. But as Shark, our Seraphim Jinbei, actually launches a blast directly at Edison, creating a massive blast within the lab, seemingly hitting Edison. But out of absolutely nowhere, we see my boy Sanji come out of the woodworks and swoop up Edison, and he lands right near Zoro, surprising even seemingly Zoro. And I want to go ahead and say this: Oda, you're a GOAT for going ahead and giving us just another example of how fast my boy Sanji is. And I have a hot take, and I would love to debate with anyone. Sanji is top 5 in One Piece when it comes to speed. Now, I think that Sanji hasn't hit his ceiling for his potential when it comes to speed. But I will go ahead and say this: from what we got in Wano and as well as what we got in this recent chapter, I think we can conclusively say 100% that Sanji is one of the fastest characters within One Piece. That Kizaru and Sanji fight is going to be an elite battle. I'm telling you this right now. Anyways, with Edison's command, the Seraphim are finally back under Vegapunk's command. And from the looks of it, it looks like everything seems to be going in the direction of the Straw Hats and Vegapunk. But at the end of this chapter, I think we can all suspect that things aren't going to be this way for too long. And you'll see what I mean. We briefly cut back to Luffy, who is currently looking for Old Man Vegapunk as well as Bonnie, who we last saw was in the chamber with that huge Kuma orb thingy. Yeah. I need that Kuma backstory, hopefully in the next couple chapters. Anyways, moving on, we actually moved to Sphinx Island, the home of none other than the late great Whitebeard. And children of the island are actually letting Marco know about the event that happened while he was in Wano. Marines had spontaneously tried to invade the island looking for Whitebeard's treasure. And the kids even described the assailants as if they were pirates. But on a side note, I would love to see more of the Marines' perspective of how these things kind of operate, especially with these Marines just popping up and trying to basically start something with an island that is more so at peace than anything else. So I do kind of want to see how this is looked upon amongst Garp as well as Kobe, especially looking on the outside looking in or the inside looking out. One of those. But anyways, one thing leads to another, and the Marines are actually about to attack innocent bystanders. Until none other than Weevil, the alleged son of Whitebeard, comes to the rescue, and he basically bodies all of these fodder Marines. Now, my opinion on Weevil, I'm kind of indifferent as far as Weevil goes. I never really paid him too much close attention in the earlier chapters when he got introduced as a warlord. But I will say that we do know that he's very strong, and he even rivaled the strength of a teenage Whitebeard. So I do kind of want to see how things kind of correlate. I think the story of Weevil as well as his mom is going to be more so predicated a little bit later on in the later chapters. But my opinion on Weevil, I think he's cool. I think he's strong. Obviously not one of my favorite characters. And if you wanted me to go ahead and theorize, I do think that he's a failed clone of Stussy, or basically the original Stussy, Mrs. Buckingham. So yeah, that's my opinion on that. Yeah, I don't know what to say. But fortunately, Sphinx Island was saved by the bravery of Weevil. But a little bit later on, a mysterious figure lets it be known that this isn't all that happened. And in this chapter, it's confirmed that Mrs. Backing is truly the original Buckingham Stussy, former member of the Rocks Pirates, and even states that she is a self-proclaimed scientist. Now, I wonder why Oda added this into the chapter. Maybe this has to do with her necessarily being a part of the Mads organization, but we haven't really seen her kind of interact with the rest of the members, including Judge, including Judge, Caesar, and Queen, as well as Vegapunk. Now, it could also be because we finally got the reveal in this chapter is why that's the case. But I do kind of think that maybe she's kind of a person on the outside of the Mads program, but wasn't necessarily involved with a lot of the shenanigans that was going on. So I do kind of want to see what's going on with that. But she basically details that not long after the victory of Weevil, that they decided to call reinforcements, and they sent none other than Green Bull to go ahead and capture Weevil. And she also mentions for Marco to go ahead and give her Whitebeard's inheritance. I guess because, you know, Weevil is his son, so she wants the inheritance. You know, I don't know. I just don't know. But, you know, I digress. Marco kind of reluctantly says thanks for saving Sphinx Island to Mrs. Backen, but she says this. Marco, I can hear it in your tone. You still doubt he's Whitebeard's. Well, I know someone who can prove it. Dr. Vegapunk. Now, this is interesting because from the looks of it, I don't necessarily think that her and Whitebeard had any kind of relationship. But, I mean, if we're going to be honest, I mean, a primetime Stussy and a primetime Whitebeard. If I was Whitebeard, I'd be like, hey, you know, what's up, shorty? What you trying to do? But, you know, I digress. Anyways, I do think that the implications are kind of given that Mrs. Backen actually was able to try to clone Whitebeard. And from the looks of it, it doesn't look truly 100% successful. Maybe the strength is there, but I don't necessarily think the looks are there, if you know what I mean. But we conclude the chapter with some absolute hype. So we move on to Kizaru, and we know that he's currently headed to Egghead, and he seems to be talking to somebody who has prepared snacks and tea. And Kizaru actually grills the individual and tells him that did they check the tea and snacks for poison. Now, really quick, this tactic actually kind of made my mind go to old monarchies where they would have somebody test the food or the water or the drinks for the king or the queen in order for them not to be poisoned by any assassins. And this would be done as a precautionary measure in order for no one to try to kill the king or the queen. So this action alone has to be for somebody incredibly important. We then see that the Marines flag is actually accompanied by a world government's flag. And then we see Kizaru actually speak to somebody. And it's that very important person I mentioned before. He says, so have you ever met Dr. Vegapunk before? And it's none other than one of the Gorosei members, the 5 elders. And he simply responds by saying this. Once a long time ago. I think what's happening now is truly such a shame. And this is crazy for a multitude of reasons. Now, for one, knowing that one of the 5 elders is going to Egghead directly means that there are huge implications for what is going to happen next. 2, we actually get to see the name of our first Gorosei member, and his name is this, Saint J. Garcia Saturn. And I guess we can kind of get the implication that he may be of Hispanic lineage. Garcia is more so of a Hispanic name. Now, if we look at the chapter notes that was provided, shout out to TCB, Jay Garcia, for one, might be a reference to a musician who actually looks pretty similar to the character in One Piece. But the name Saturn is the thing that stands out the most. And we do know that Oda loves to use foreshadowing within his story. And this could mean a lot. 1, this could mean that possibly the Gorosei could represent different planets within the One Piece storyline. Now, as far as what this Gorosei member's actual reason is for coming to Egghead, there could be a lot of things, but if he is coming to fight, this could mean a deeper meaning for his powers, or at least a prediction for his powers to come. And huge shout out to my guy Somo on the Discord for actually pointing this out to me. Saturn can also be a reference in Roman mythology, but Saturn is known as the god of time in Roman mythology. Now, knowing that, the Gorsei member Saturn could possibly have the ability to manipulate time. Now, I'm about to go into serious headcanon theorize mode, so, bear with me. So, as you see, I had to kind of change things up a little bit, but I wanted to discuss one theory that I had about Saturn, and how Saturn is directly tied to Greek and Roman mythology. And we do know that Greek and Roman mythology is heavily influenced by a lot of the things that happen on with One Piece. We can see that very well with the ancient weapons. Now, yes, everything that I said before this is correct. Saturn, or Kronos, is the god of time in Greek and Roman mythology. Now, before I get into this, I haven't pieced all of this together. I'm not the big theorist like O'Hara or Mr. Morge or whoever, or shout out to my guy Joe Skulls. But I will say there are a lot of similarities that I feel like can be pieced together. So Saturn in Roman mythology is a very odd person, to say the least. But I will say this, he sort of looks like Saturn from One Piece as well, at least from the depictions that we've seen. But the story goes like this. Saturn was once read a prophecy that his offspring would soon result in his downfall. So as a result, he decided to do the most logical thing whenever his wife bared a child, and that was to eat his kids. Yes, you heard that right, he ate his kids. Now, let's be real. Oda isn't going to do anything like that within One Piece. This isn't a seinen. Well, actually, technically, you know what? Never mind. Anyways, long story short, there was actually one child that was able to escape the fate of being eaten and basically being cannibalized. And that was none other than Zeus. Anyways, a little bit later on, Saturn's wife, who actually is his sister, yes, you heard that right, Saturn married his sister. Yeah. In an effort to stop Saturn from eating any more of his kids, his wife decided to go ahead and poison him. And as a result, Saturn actually threw up the other children who had been devoured. Yes, I know this story is absolutely wild, but this is where things kind of seem a little bit similar, especially from this chapter. For one, in this chapter particularly, we were actually referenced to Saturn, Jay Garcia, actually possibly being poisoned, which was conveniently mentioned at the beginning of his introduction. But continuing on, we know that after this spout of throwing up his kids, Saturn actually declared war against his children, and Zeus was able to reconvene with the other children who had once been devoured. And this battle was known as the Titanomachy. Now, the thing that makes this very similar is the fact that Oda actually referenced that a huge battle royale would take place within this year. And this could very well be that occasion. But ultimately, these are nothing but similarities. I couldn't necessarily find a distinct connection between the two events that is happening within One Piece and the stuff within Roman and Greek mythology. But I did think this was very interesting, at least to kind of detail to you guys. Imagine a true battle of the Titans versus the Olympians could be a very good reference for events happening within the One Piece storyline. And also, we could also look at the fact that who could possibly be Zeus in all of this equation. And Zeus could very well be Enel. Enel and Zeus both have lightning abilities. And we currently don't know too much about Enel personally or his background, but we do know currently from the old cover pages that he has reconvened on the moon and he is actually joined by the Automatas, little mini robots that kind of look like Chopper. And it would be very interesting if this is his method of returning to the story. And furthermore, it could be absolutely insane if Enel is actually a part of the 20 original families of royalty. Now, on the other hand, Zeus could very well be Luffy. And I mean, this is a stretch, but we don't know necessarily if Luffy could possibly be a celestial dragon, or at least related to a celestial dragon. And we also have seen that Luffy isn't scared to handle a lightning bolt. But in conclusion, I wasn't truly able to make a solid connection between the two events happening within One Piece and Roman mythology, but the similarities are there. So if you guys have any other comments or opinions on this, please let me know. I would love to kind of piece together a nice little theory referring to Saturn and One Piece. but just for the simple fact that the Gorosei member is going to risk his safety by going to Egghead, knowing that both Luffy and Vegapunk are within the island, he has to have a major reasoning for accompanying Kizaru on his journey. But that's all for this chapter. This chapter was incredibly hype. There's so much stuff to discuss. I really want to know what you guys think in the comments down below. Do you think my theories are a little bit off? Or what do you think about one of the Gorosei members finally making his move directly? Well, let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Oda is going crazy with the writing. I'm loving One Piece every single week. But thank you so much for tuning in to this chapter review. I love all of you guys. Go ahead and like, comment, and subscribe to the Benji channel. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.